just went into my usual deep, dark hyper focus and came across this world of this alternative protein. I was so excited. I don't think I'd slept for 3 months. So we've kind of cottoned onto the idea of insects being in our food chain a little bit later, but essentially it's meat, just not like we think of it. It's got all the essential amino acids. I had been so focused for so many years of achieving, and then you do it. And then you're like, this is not what I thought it would be. And you have this like, oh gosh, if you looked at the back of a packet of a pie, you'd see just like a chemistry experiment full of numbers. So there wasn't any clean labelling. It was very early on in that kind of people were looking for, where does their food come from? What's in it?
If you were to explain to me what some of those numbers were in some of the food that I'm eating currently today anyway, I'd probably rather eat a black fly larvae than eat all of those chemicals.
I know myself. I love business, But I was like, right, if I'm going to go back in to this, because I know what it's going to take, it's a really conscious decision to do something where I feel like it's going to be helping the planet.
Has your sister forgiven you for growing black fly larvae in her bathroom? A wonderful conversation today with Jessie Stanley, the founder of I Love Pies. She moved from that space, growing in a really fantastic business over a period of about a dozen years, took some external funding, and then went through a successful exit process to one of New Zealand's most famous families. I'll let you find out who that is. She then went into a period of reflection, COVID, enjoying life, before she started on her current venture, Grub, which is about reinventing the food supply, about taking technology that didn't really exist and making it into something really fascinating and interesting. So we talk about food, we talk about fundraising, we talk about families, we talk about fun, and I hope that you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. Jessie Stanley, from pies to flies. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Josh.
It's an absolute pleasure. So, has your sister forgiven you for growing black fly larvae in her bathroom?
I know, what a generous, amazing sister I have, right?
Seems to be, right?
I know. She is pretty cool, I will say. Sometimes she reminds me, and I'm sure that I will have to make it up to her in the future sometime.
No doubt. That's a big ask.
Yeah, she's pretty excited about the project as well.
Okay,
so,
cool.
Yeah, so she's definitely an amazing person to have, as a mentor even for me as well. She's also an entrepreneur and a businesswoman. So
wow,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah, so
I'll come back to both of those things, but I want to start with us talking about I Love Pies, which was your first business and the one that you took through to exit. So tell us about I Love Pies and the founding of that company.
Yeah, sure. So I've always been an obsessive foodie. I started cooking like when I was about 3. My mum was so cool. She'd just be like, let me out in the kitchen, and I'd read cookbooks for entertainment. Wow. And food was a really special part of my childhood. My mum would always just bring innovative food into our world. I think we had hummus before anybody, years before anybody was having hummus, and kombucha we had in the fridge, and just...
You were those weird kids at school that brought unusual things?
100%. Yeah. Do you know what? I'd always actually be a little bit ashamed of my random as, but retrospectively, incredible lunchboxes. Yeah. I'd be like, these pistachio nuts, or like whatever that was. I'd always be like, can I trade it for your, I don't know, Monster Munch? Or
I was the same.
Oh, really?
We had Vogel's bread in the late 1970s, early 80s.
100%.
And everyone had the white fairy bread with the hundreds and thousands. And then we had these milk biscuits and Cruskits. So Mum was like super clean, really so conscious of what we put in our mouths. And all I wanted to do was eat sausage rolls and candy.
McDonald's.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so lucky now looking back upon it, right?
Yeah. That's so funny. So huge fascination with food, and that naturally led me to pursue a food science degree where I worked in the food industry my entire professional career.
What does a food scientist do?
Yeah, so a food scientist actually can go and do a lot. Within the food industry, there's so many different jobs that you can have with it. You can specialize in the engineering, which is, the equipment, manufacturing, how you build food. You can be in the marketing, or you can be in the product development. There's so many different, aspects to a food company. I ended up specializing in new product development. Mm-hmm. I have a really creative side to me. I kind of think that I'm sort of 50% artistic, creative, 50% sort of analytical scientific. So I've got kind of a left-right brain hemisphere sort of vibe. So it was after a really grueling 4-year degree, which was very heavy science, tech, little sparks of creativity, but nothing much. It was a total joy. I ended up getting my first job working for Tip Top Ice Cream, developing food products, which was just heavenly. I absolutely loved that job. So I think I'd been sort of really heavily on the technical side, but I knew I had this very deep artistic, creative spark. So I was always fascinated with branding, love kind of spotting a trend, and I'd been very much in the technical roles. So I thought to myself, gosh, I'd really love to start a brand myself.
And what age were you at this point?
Well, I had my food tech job all through my 20s and 30s. Went overseas in London, worked for big corporates, Fonterra and PepsiCo in the UK. So I had like big kind of corporate.
You'd climbed the corporate ladder away from the engineering of the food.
Yeah, into very kind of specialised innovation. It was like fantastic working in England because you were right with the marketing teams. It really channeled my deep creativity to come up with new ideas and get them implemented. But I always sort of had this scope, which I was like, I think I've got more than technical. I've really got the ability for some branding ability as well, just with how I sort of my brain works. So I think I had this deep kind of I'd always be watching what are the cool brands doing, and I'd nerdily, I'm the person that likes to go to supermarkets and look at brands and just go, ooh, what's this? And I've done this since a kid. Like I delight in looking at new products. So I think I had this kind of in the back of my head. I was like, gosh, I'd love to do a food brand myself, and that sort of felt like I could kind of push past the technical side into the branding. And that's kind of really sort of, I had that latent sort of thought in my head, came back from my OE and thought, okay, well, this is a perfect time. I was in my early 30s and happened to meet Marie Glading, who was my co-founder for I Love Pies. She also had a desire to start a business. And actually, when we first connected, we both thought, oh, maybe we could buy a business. And we kind of went out and looked at a few different places, options. And we kind of went, wait a second, she's got the marketing kind of business discipline. I know how to develop products and launch them. And so we joined forces, and that's where kind of I Love Pies started. It was very, I think because of our corporate careers, we're really analytical about the process. And I remember we did this big kind of strategic map on, what are the different high value and volume growth areas in the supermarket, which are kind of under-branded. And we, I think we had puddings and pies and soups, lots of different things. We did kind of like an analysis of, where's the heat? Where can we maximize sort of that, a under-branded area, and we settled on pies. And we literally, I started developing them in the kitchen.
As one would imagine, an oven and some ingredients and some pastry. I know it's going to be way more complicated than that.
A little bit, but that's cool, yeah.
Yes, so I'd interrupt your flow.
No, all good.
I just want to go back to that decision point around buy versus build.
Yeah.
Because that's a really key inflection point in any business. And so how far down the path did you get at looking at other companies, and what types of companies were you looking at?
Yeah, we looked at companies. We probably looked at 3 or 4. And I think
manufacturers? It
was branded food. Yeah, people that were manufacturing kind of smaller scale stuff. And I think that we thought what we saw, it gave us confidence to go,
we could do this.
We can do that ourselves. Right. Wait a second. It just really helped. I mean, even meeting the amazing people doing it, we're like, they're amazing people. And some people who'd got into the food industry had never even had half the experience. They'd done it cold,
right,
which absolutely blows me away because it's a lot of skill set, and you need a lot of different skills to be manufacturing food, and how brave of them.
Yes.
So I'm like, gosh, this person has started a business without any food background, yet we've had combined between us 20 years plus. So let's just do it. So we started really small.
Yeah. it's a interesting thing for those that desire to get a business out of the ground. If you're going into a space in which you have absolutely no experience, the best thing I always believe is go and get a job working for a founder that's in that space, so you can understand what it's like to grow and learn within an industry alongside someone who hopefully has some pretty good chops that you can learn from. And so the decision point for you guys was to go, we can buy something which has essentially what we would call in that type of business a lot of goodwill associated with it, which would add to the EBIT multiple of that company. So we'd have to pay them for their time, for their research, for their love into this product over time. And so did you remember kind of any price points of these businesses? We're going back a few years.
Yeah, I think there was one that was like 100K. And at the time for us, that was, too much. you know, so that was like
your shoestring, right?
We were like, just come back from OE and sort of still beginning our journey of life. But so that gave us the conviction to go, okay, well, let's just try this ourselves.
And why pies?
Because, well, first of all, we quickly decided that our skill set. It would cost a lot of money to set up a factory. I'd followed a few contract manufacturing successes in the UK. There was a drinks company called Innocent, and they contract manufactured. And I thought that's a great low risk start to get into this without having to invest in steel and all of that stuff. And you know how busy you are in a startup anyway. I was like, if that's one less thing that we can kind of have to spend our time on focused, we can really push the NPD and the brand and so forth. So we realised as well, hey, in New Zealand, there's actually a lot of pie manufacturers out there.
Right. Yeah, so that would be my sense.
So we knew that we could probably get into a co-manufacturing position relatively easy because there were a lot of bakeries around.
Yes, so they would have capacity. Yes.
Yep. And at the time, there was no kind of aspects of talking about ingredients or even thinking about the origin of the ingredients or what was in them. Clean labels wasn't a thing. Like if you looked at the back of a packet of a pie, you'd see just like a chemistry experiment.
Really like full of numbers kind of thing.
Yeah, like full of numbers. So there wasn't any clean labeling. It was very early on, and that kind of people were looking for where does their food come from, what's in it? And we really tapped into that momentum. And that was right from the beginning. We, especially me, spent so much time ensuring the ingredients were what I'd want to eat at home. So it was sort of like the promise of this is a food product like you'd make at home. You can look at the back of the ingredients and it's not going to be feeling uncomfortable. You could make this at home.
So I consider myself a foodie, but not to the same extent anywhere near that you are. So I love good food. And it tends to be more Tina that cooks the good food, but we also love going out and dining and experiencing different places, not just fine dining, but all kind of different types of levels and ethnicities and different parts of the world. And so when I look at the back of the ingredients on something and I see a bunch of numbers, I think preservatives. So I'm curious about what would one go looking for and what would some of those things mean without getting into like a chemistry kind of science explanation.
Yeah, totally. So there's lots of so E numbers, the numbers that you'll see often on the back of pack. And it actually it's an easier way for a manufacturer to put down list an ingredient rather than their big chemical name, which sounds kind of yucky. So
right, bit scary.
So there's lots of classifications on different E numbers. So you might have stabilizers, thickeners, preservatives. And sometimes like an E number will be something like baking soda.
Right.
So it can actually, it's a little bit of a kind of a, some people, are really anti-preservatives because they can do some biochemical damage inside you, so forth. But not all E numbers are bad, but it's got the halo of being bad. So I think we, like where we did well was we were able to kind of get the pulse of what kind of people were feeling and make sure that we honoured that. But but for us as well, it was more things like free range chicken. There was the sort of like, there was the layering too, kind of, it wasn't just E numbers that we kind of avoided on pack. It was making sure that, we knew, we had relationships with all of our where we sourced all of our ingredients. We knew the smoked fish people, we
Yes.
knew the chicken bite,
Yeah.
So it's that
So
sort
like
of it's real layering to it as well.
From farm to table kind of thing,
Yeah.
mentality.
Yeah.
So at this point, this is about 10 years or so ago, give or take.
2008.
2008.
Yeah, the
Okay,
GFC, great time
15,
to
17 years. Okay, yeah, great time to start a business.
Yeah.
In hindsight. So that time is quite early in the conscious awareness of what it is that we're putting into our mouths.
Yes.
Was it a feeling that you had that people wanted this, or was it a personal need? Like I'm a glutard, for example, gluten-free 25 plus years. And so I've been conscious of what I eat for many, many years. But I noted that it took a long time for people to get on that journey. So how did you know that this might be the right time to do this sort of business?
Yeah. Being in England, I mean, their level of sophistication around food at the time really surpassed what was happening in New Zealand. Right. So I saw it really clearly, a lot of brands calling out sort of, the connection with where their ingredients came from, clean labeling, and wrapping that around a brand that wasn't just sort of there was another layer to it that I saw around people knowing that there were real people making their food behind them as well. So it wasn't just the ingredients, it was the fact that we went out right from the beginning with our PR and what surrounded the brand, that there were two real people that really cared about food and that we were mums, so that was a connection between, behind the brand, what the brand looked like, what it ultimately tasted like, and then the integrity and trust that you build with that, connecting with your ingredients and so forth on the packaging.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, so sort of like a wraparound kind of thing. So I did see that emerging in the UK, and it really wasn't here when by the time that I got home. So we sort of rode the tide of that, and were right at the forefront of kind of transparency and branding, and
Yes. So did you have to do a reasonable amount of educating customers as to what this is and why it's important? Because I'm guessing the thing behind the scenes there is this is a premium product, right? And so you're not selling the $4 gas station maggot pack, which is a joke from my teenage years. Yeah. In fact, I think they're about $2 back in those sort of days. I want to ask you about Ponsonby pies later on, by the way, as well. So premium product, premium positioning. And so you've got to have the story about why it is the case. Because, farm to table, high quality produce, no GE, GM, whatever those things are. And so did you find people were willing to invest, to spend that additional money at the outset, or was there a period of time in educating what it was and why it was important?
Well, something that worked really well from us, not even just from a cash flow point of view, but we still launched our product and brand at the Clevedon Farmers Market, and then closely followed by the Matakana Farmers Market. Okay. And not only was this amazing because everything we earned we put back into the brand, and it helped evolve that investment on that side. It allowed us to connect with customers. And what happens is, as soon as you get something delicious in your mouth, it sells us, it's we really do, lead with that. If it tastes good, and then it's got some other touch points around it, which is it looks beautiful. You can see there's clean listing. There's layers to it that sort of builds up that trust. We were also really, really lucky that quite early on we were picked up by Farrow.
Yes.
And obviously the halo around them, we got an article then quite quickly in Cuisine. So it just sort of was this beautiful sort of transition to kind of letting people know about us. Presence on shelf. People would go to Farrow, they'd know our brand. We did extensive sampling and tasting. That was pretty much our big marketing push and spend. So that really allowed us to get pies in people's mouth. And it's really quite interesting as soon as people taste it and you can, they see you speak them, it builds up just such a connection of realness, as well as being the credibility that was brought to us by being at the farmers markets. Yes. So it was just this really organic but beautiful flow of kind of bringing people on to the brand. I think it was that sort of, I don't know if you've had it with a brand before, it feels like it's almost like you discover a brand yourself, maybe at a farmer's market, and then you watch their transition and you've sort of like, you're like, oh, I've seen where they've come from. You're part of the brand story as well. Yes. So we had that lovely storytelling surrounding the brand brand as well.
Funnily enough, Kaz, your friend who you introduced me to, is coming on in a couple of weeks.
Oh, awesome.
And Pure Delish,
Yes.
so gluten-free from the outset. And I vividly recall back in it would have been the early mid-noughties that they started to crop up. And so saw them kind of transition through and expand the product range and go into different parts of the supermarket. And I've always loved their products. So looking forward to that conversation as well. So can relate to that journey. So at the outset, it was very much a organic growth of the business. So you were very hands-on, creating the products. You had some contract manufacturers making the products. Yeah. You were dealing directly with the customers. Then you had the exposure to a small, like a boutique, high-class supermarket. A food market would be probably the description for Farrow. Was there kind of a next step that you then had to kind of go to, how did you move from that kind of very hands-on everything to the next stage in the business?
Yeah, totally. Well, to be fair, we actually handmade every single pie. Every single pie. So we were really lucky. We found a contract manufacturing bakery, but we were so little. But the wonderful owner, I think, was just curious about who are these two young women trying to get this pie around. And he, bless him, allowed us to... we paid for all the ingredients, but he just let us make the pies in the bakery for 6 months.
Wow.
Yeah, so cool. So that gave us a real leg up. And then at the point in time we were starting to get serious customers like Farrow, then we transitioned to a more formal contract manufacturing where we started to pay the bakers themselves, obviously supervising and so forth. But yeah, that sort of was the first transition. And then I think the next natural step for us was that, both Marie and I were working from home. It was actually really lucky. I was reflecting, we were quite lucky, I think, with timings because we were able to capitalize on a lot of the cloud software that just, I think we were one of the first 50 Xero customers. Wow. So that allowed us to kind of be a little bit more kind of working from home right early on.
Yes.
But we quickly recognized that we needed more support. So we brought on our first staff member, this amazing woman that helped us sort of with the admin side of things. And then, went to an office and then just all the rest of the, the growth story. And that just sort of, once again, allowed us to manage our cash flow, build up and be profitable quite earlier, but invest back into the brand.
Yes.
And it was really the supermarket growth that really sort of helped us to just, really get to that next stage of being able to get an office and, all those kind of milestones that you achieve when you're sort of growing a business from nothing.
Yeah.
I must say as well, we started the business with $2,000.
$2,000.
And most of that was spent on a van, which we called affectionately shit van, because it was this terrible, to get us to the farmers market.
Right, of course. Yeah,
so
to look legitimate. Yeah. I was going to ask, was that on product development or branding or logos? That would have been a logical place. No, we designed that ourselves.
No, we were quite happy to get rid of shipman eventually. It was a means to an end to get us transport only, but yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm. I'm guessing from the story that the growth therefore was kind of consistent and linear. It wasn't like a hockey stick at any time or like a massive, or was there step changes?
There were some step changes.
Tell me about those.
So it was around new product development that we sort of saw. We grew really steadily in the supermarkets. We had some export wins, and then we launched a few different initiatives to get those step changes. Our first big kind of jump was from sausage rolls. So at the time, everybody, I was going to all these kids' parties, and I was like, everyone loved when the sausage rolls came out, but you saw a horror story on the back of packet.
Yeah.
So that was an opportunity for us to get better ingredients, free range meats, that type of thing. So that was one step change, and then another big step change for us is when we developed the cookies. So we did I Love Baking, and that again sort of jumped us up from because we entered into new categories essentially.
Yes,
with the brand. So
okay,
yeah.
Exporting to which countries and how did that go?
Yeah, so we got to Costco in Australia. So that was a really big deal, and because you have to change all your packaging and your product, and part of it as well is that we needed to be a month over there in store
physically,
wow. And selling the pies to prove that it was gonna.
What was that like?
It was exhausting.
Yeah, no doubt.
It's funny, the Costco here, I still haven't gone into it in New Zealand because I'm like, I know it.
Yeah, PTSD.
I know it so intimately. So I'm like, I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a really intense experience. Sadly, in the end, it didn't provide long-term growth, but it was an amazing kind of challenge, and we felt super proud to be in such an amazing retailer. I think it was just the price point of the product. It was, you can buy, I think the equivalent was like $20 for 50 pies, and we were selling at twice the price. So it's stuff like that you just sort of, you got to try. Australians hadn't come on the brand story, like New Zealanders had. So it was all those sort of things.
Yeah. I was going to ask that. It did seem to me like not a logical fit, high premium product into Costco, which I actually still haven't been to, but I understand that it's about buying reasonable quality at big bulk volumes at a discount is what I understand.
Yeah, they do quite, there are some quite premium brands that can work in that space, but it was just, I think the price discrepancy sort of ultimately didn't help us in the end. But an amazing experience, and I felt super proud to get in there.
Yes. Did you sell into the main supermarkets in New Zealand?
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Okay. So there's a lot of complaining from people about the difficulty, the duopoly, that sort of thing. What was your experience like? And it may have been different then to what it is now, but talk us through that.
Yeah. We had the very lucky break that the supermarkets came to us.
Oh.
So that was pretty cool. So they saw obviously our success in Farrow, because they were kind of obviously keen on seeing what are the emerging brands. Yeah. So we had our first foodstuffs people come to us. I think it was Devonport New World, and so that was a very exciting day. I remember. Yes. It was like, exciting, so it allowed us to, because they wanted our brand, it allowed us to go in and negotiate terms that were fair, and the price, we had enough margin in the product to allow us to be in the supermarket in a safe place, because I think it can really hurt people if they haven't got their pricing structure. I think throughout the whole of the business, I'm really proud that we, right from the beginning, I think because of our corporate backgrounds, we were really steadfast on the numbers and, making sure that it was a very sort of, calculated and thoughtful way that we approach these things. And we hired really smartly. So we got we got an amazing GM quite early on to help us, who had extensive sales in the FMCG world. So we were able to see where our maybe blind spots were, and, weren't afraid of hiring people that were smarter than us in the different areas to make sure that we were successful.
Yeah. It's a Henry Fordism, which is to, I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but I'm known for hiring the smartest people in the room.
Yeah.
And so it demonstrates a real, a smallness of ego in a positive way, because you have the insight that I can't do everything, I can't excel at everything.
Yeah.
And so good on you for doing that. The trip that I see many founders make is that they know that they need to hire someone into particularly a leadership role, and they bring that person in, but they don't give them the structure or the freedom. So those things are almost diametrically opposed. There's a bit of structure and a bit of certainty around how we run the business and what the operating rhythm of it is. And then there's the freedom to operate that they need as well. And so they lack one or both of those things. And so they're trying to micromanage this person who's supposed to be leading the business. Yeah. And so it sounds like you didn't have any of those things along the way as well. So
yeah.
And so you talked about some of the growth. You had some step change points. What kind of scale did you get the business to? I'm curious about, as much as you can share about, numbers, staff size, that sort of thing.
Yeah. So we were 12 people at the end, and we went into many millions of our revenue. So so it was a successful. I think we had a big chunk of the pie market in the end of it.
Yeah, so. Wow. Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm curious about the food business. So you contract manufactured to the very end. So in other words, you avoided the capital intensive nature of having to have expensive hardware, manufacturing equipment, leases, all those sort of obligations. And so across those 12 people, what was the mix of capabilities for those people? Was it largely like a marketing and a fulfillment team? Was it product development? What was the split of those 12 people?
So we had obviously our GM, who was our sales lead. We had two key account people, so a sales team of 4. That's really important. You build something, you've got to make sure that you can sell it.
Yes.
So we identified really early on that we need it. And especially when you're dealing with the supermarkets, you need people that know what they're doing and to get out onto the road as well.
Yeah.
Then we had 4 people in our marketing team, led by Marie, my business partner, one person who specialised in PR. We quickly realised that was really important. It used to be easier to achieve with publications, and then we had procurement people and admin, and then people in our finance team as well. So that was the split between those different roles.
Yeah, okay. So from the outside...
And myself, the technical, August kind of like hovered between sort of NPD and managing the factories. And,
like the creative of the business, so to speak.
Marie and I were both intensely creative. So, we both owned that space, but I then implemented it.
Yes. Now, this is not to denigrate the quality of the product that you were building, because that's very clear that it was a high quality thing that you put a lot of love and investment and energy and thinking into. When I hear about the breakdown of the resources, and there would have been some spend that you would have been conducting on getting things, some digital marketing, some probably old school advertising, I'm guessing as well for that type of business, in-store promotions, those sorts of things. So if I think about the breakdown of the team, it's actually a sales and marketing problem that you're really solving for, isn't it?
Yeah, we
That's
did
really
sort of, Obviously we had to have a technical aspect of it, because you're in food. You cannot, just allow that was one of the kind of the battles I think that we had as we grew. We were like, at what point do we actually should we start making this ourselves? So we went through so many, we had an advisory board right from early, and it was always a constant kind of discussion. What do we do? Should we start making this ourselves? Because you cannot control there's positives and negatives for contract manufacturing. You're not going to have the control on all of the quality that potentially you want to, the cultural aspects of a factory that makes your pies, so that sort of thing. So obviously, oh gosh, what a huge investment it would have been to build a pie factory, and and I think ultimately it wasn't something we really wanted to do, I think.
I have a quadrant that I use with people when I'm going through the process of looking at the things that we should absolutely keep in-house from an employee standpoint, and the things that we should either consider offshoring or outsourcing or automating. So the last one is a different piece, by the way, but I'll talk to the first bit because we're talking about capability that you need to have in-house to succeed as a business. This is a really interesting thing to observe. And so on the quadrant, I have on one axis, I have strategic importance. So how strategically important is this thing for us to get right to make sure that we succeed? And on the other axis is control. And so how much control do we need over this thing? So if it's of low strategic importance and it's low control, then we're going to outsource that thing. We're going to get someone else to do that. It sounds like that conversation was definitely had along the way, and it was of probably medium strategic importance because there's a product quality thing, but the control thing was kind of one that would have pushed it, I'm guessing, down into that kind of category. Whereas for the marketing piece, the sales piece, dealing with our customers, understanding the product range, being able to upsell, being informed about the products, you needed to have that in-house. That was something that was strategically important, and you needed high control over it. Have I got that right?
Yeah, definitely. And we kind of did some mitigations. We hired a specific technical lead to make sure that we managed the factory relationships, because I couldn't be across everything. In the end, I think we had 5 different manufacturing plants that we were managing. So you needed to have a technical lead being more across that than I could do with my, I couldn't do it all. So that type of thing. And that sort of helped to kind of, put a Band-Aid on that kind of, that natural tension that happens between the contract manufacturer and
So during that growth period, were there any moments that you were teetering on the edge of a precipice, either personally from oh my God, I've got too much to do, or the business was we've been running out of cash flow, or there's a big competitor that's looming, and where were the moments that looked as if it was all kind of under threat?
I think retrospectively, I probably didn't. I had 2 children during the process of the company.
Did you have them in the factory as well? Were they making pies?
No, but damn, they're teenagers now, and I kind of think, oh, damn, that would have
been a bit earlier on the scene.
Employed them, but anyway. So I think I have always been a person that is a high achiever and works really, really hard. And I think when you're so busy doing things, you don't quite realise how stretched you are. You know, it's not until I sold the business that I kind of had a moment to go, whew, I really pushed myself. Yeah. I didn't have a breakdown, but I retrospectively am so grateful that I stopped when I did to kind of catch my breath. So it's funny, actually. I recollect, you know, like I've had conversations with friends that are like, we didn't really see you.
Yeah.
You know, like you work so hard, but it's not like when you have a business and it takes off and it's successful, you can't just step away from the train. It is, you know, you're employing people, you've got heaps of responsibility. It's not just something you can go, right, I didn't know anything else. So on a personal level, I think, that was like I'm approaching my new business in a really kind of a different way through having some time out.
Yes.
And thinking about how I can kind of manage myself. And also having older kids is helpful as well.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit more self-sufficient now. So on a personal note, those were definitely, and it was stressful, like, you know, fast-moving consumer goods. You know, you've got pies not turning up at shops, just, you know, all of the things, right? You know, dealing with consumers, it's a full-on place to be.
Yes.
And we worked really, really hard. So, a personal level was, But in terms of like major moments, I think it was just sort of trying to balance life as a mum and working and trying to get the balance.
Yeah. I suspect probably on a number of occasions it didn't happen. And there were things, you know, all decisions have consequences, and often the consequences are sacrifices of things that you might like to have more of in your life. Yeah. I've been through periods in my businesses where, for example, you know, I had about a year-long period where I was starting a new company. My existing one was doing super well. I started to get into industrial property development. Don't ask me why, but I did. And then decided to do another venture as well along the side. And so the thing that I had to make a decision on, something had to suffer. And I literally remember not seeing my friends for basically a year. Yeah, so I had no social life for a year. Yeah. And my socialising was on a Saturday afternoon. That was the time that I chose to not work, and I'd go outside and I'd drink 3 craft beers, and then I'd watch a movie, and then I'd just get up on Sunday and start again. Yeah, literally almost collapse. Yeah. Luckily, I was able to maintain some exercise so that my brain still, you know, kind of kept going, because, you know, healthy body, healthy mind, etc. But I think from the outside, people get caught up in the allure of what the lifestyle looks like, and they certainly look at the outcomes that one can achieve when they have some success, some financial success in business, but they don't always consider or are aware of the sacrifices that need to get made along the way. Yeah, 100%. I don't know a single successful founder that hasn't flirted with burnout at some stage and had to sacrifice either time with family. That's probably the worst thing for a lot of people. Didn't see my kids when they were, you know, 0 to 6 years old. I've heard that from many, many people in the past. Or they didn't have a big social life at all, or they didn't travel, or, you know, these types of things. Yeah. And so, you know, they're conscious consequences and trade-offs we have to make. To live the life that others can't lead, then you might have to sacrifice some things along the way to be able to have that experience later on down the path. Yeah.
Luckily, I love my co-workers, so we had a beautiful environment that we worked in. So it wasn't like it was a really joyful, there was lots of joy in that business as well, but I definitely with the kid thing and being a mum and all those extra responsibilities. It was exhausting.
I think it's easy to understate, I should say, that as well, like having such a positive work environment. What were some things that you did to foster, like that's a cultural thing, right? So what were some things that you did to foster a great culture, and that therefore you enjoyed it and also your team did as well?
We had a bell in the office.
Right, yes.
We celebrated our successes.
Yeah, great.
We were social together. Every Friday we had pies for lunch, no surprise. Celebrating birthdays, milestones, good feedback, beautiful food always. Yes. You know, it was just a fun environment. Yes. We had, we'd do photo shoots in the office, and exciting, fun things happened. Like we were picked up by Eden Park to supply the pies to them. So it meant that we got tickets for Eden Park. So it was just like they were really like who would think that pies could create such interesting and fun kind of... I remember being even involved with fashion show, with Fashion Week, we were the pie supplier to the fashion show, so we had a lot of fun as well.
That was a thing.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, it is now.
Kind of feels like a strange product. But anyway,
seems out of place.
We were there.
Yeah. I'm guessing, Jessie, that if I look through this, what I see with some company owners and founders is that they have this pool of information about the business, pool of knowledge about how to go about making the thing succeed. And there's a whole lot of stuff that goes on and around the business. And sometimes, actually quite often, those people can keep it to themselves and they don't share a lot with their team. By the sounds, it was that you were transparent with the team about what the company's up to, the wins of the company, the product direction that we were going on. You all kind of small team, but that those two things are not always connected, that, celebrate birthdays, do things socially together. So it sounds like you were actually really open about everything that was going on in the business. And so therefore what the consequence of that is that people feel like they are a part of everything that goes on in the business and they feel a sense of ownership.
Yeah.
Here's a key question for you. I'm guessing that your staff tenure was very good.
Yeah.
You very rarely had resignations.
Yeah, we had lots of people stay for a long, long time.
Like
and
years.
I think it was really hard when we sold.
Yeah.
That felt really, because we created a family environment in our workspace. So and that was that's why we were so grateful that everybody was offered a job through the sale process. And that kind of detail was really important to us. And
you've opened the perfect segue for us here. This is the right timing. So business is going super well. You've got multi-millions of revenue. You've got products in the main supermarkets and different sales environments in New Zealand. Did you have a direct-to-consumer sale, by the way? Did you have website kind of sales?
We didn't. We toyed with that, but in the end, no. We had such great coverage with the supermarkets that we we didn't do direct-to-customer.
Yeah. Creates a whole different series of challenges as well, because you've got to have this is probably pre-Shopify days. Now you just kind of provision yourself through Shopify, off you go. But then you're also having to deal with a product that is perishable product and shipping and all that sort of stuff.
Things,
so makes sense to me.
We did toy that. We did do a pie delivery right at the beginning. It was really cute. And it was Marie and I literally driving in the shit van. Delivering pies across Auckland. And we quickly worked out that was like, actually, this is not a good, good use of our
sustainable.
Time.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
That was fun.
So the sale, what was the start? What was the origin of the conversation around maybe we should sell? How did you get into the conversation? Talk us through the early moments there.
I think it was really great at the beginning of Marie and I becoming business partners. We didn't know each other to begin with, so we weren't friends to begin with. But we became friends. And we had a really clear direction from the beginning that we knew that this wasn't like going to be a 30-year. This was a 10-ish sort of. We knew that we wanted to have an exit at some stage. So we kind of always had that in the back of our mind, I think.
And you'd had a clear, conscious conversation about it. We're building this thing to sell. Yep. Yeah,
it was kind of, and it wasn't like every day we'd talk about it, but I think we both kind of knew that it was going to be a time in our lives, not a forever thing. And I think it came to the point where, we'd grown it a lot. We still loved it. We still had a lot of passion for the brand. And I think that's a really important thing to make sure you still have. I can imagine it, if we'd waited like 5 years, we might have
started to hate it.
We were still friends. We were still good. And we still, and I think that helped with the sale as well, because you could see, when you were talking with people, bringing that passion and that energy to show that the brand actually did have lots of opportunity, and it helped with the sale as well.
Yes. That's so important.
It really is. It's a fine balance, right? Because it's sort of like, that you're going for sale. People are like, why are you selling?
Yes.
So, and I think we did have a legitimate reason around, well, we can see that to take this to the next level, we need investment and we probably should be manufacturing it ourselves. This is a real life, a crossroads for us. So it had that background there for us, but we still totally love the brand. And but we decided, and I think my kids were 7 and 9 at the same, and Marie's were as well. So we had that kind of sense of, we're kind of halfway through this parenting gig. It'd be lovely to sort of have, a little bit less, well, for me especially, like just a little bit more time to be, not racing around. Be
present as a mum.
Yeah, all those things. So it just naturally fell. So we had taken on some shareholders who actually approached us. We hadn't been looking in 2005. 2015. We hadn't been looking for investment, but these two people came with them, incredible, FMCG caliber of selling very, very large corporations. So they came with a lot of credibility to our company.
How did you meet them?
It was really lucky. Marie and I were speaking at a countdown symposium. Okay. And literally, John Kippenberger, one of our shareholders came up and said, hey, look, I've just exited and we're interested in investing in some food companies. And it was pretty easy. It was kind of conversations,
yes.
A couple of coffees, and then we're like, yeah, cool. We saw the value of knowing that we were wanting to exit at some time in the future, and just knowing their pedigree around their governance and connections.
Yes.
Made us think this is a great time for us to take this type of kind of smart money.
Yeah.
And it was great. And it was great chemistry. It was a lot of fun having these two people involved with the business as well. And it really took us, we really upskilled from their incredible knowledge and connections. And it did help with the sale as well.
So given you weren't out looking for capital at that stage, 2015, and it was rather a fortuitous kind of timing thing, how did you go about valuing and then doing the share and, the kind of stuff in behind the scenes?
So there were some industry benchmarks that we kind of had as a loose sort of background. And I think it was, we had that a few numbers in mind, and luckily sort of we negotiated that was sort of the ballpark price, and we kind of we were at that stage. It wasn't just about the money. Yes. It was actually we would love to have a boost of energy from this type of amazing experience. So it was it was an easy sort of let's give it a go kind of thing. Yeah. And it just worked out really, really well.
Minority share, I'm guessing, so less than 50% between the two of them?
Yeah, 25. So
25, yeah, great, okay. It's a smart play, quite an inspired play. You talked about smart money, and I think in this day and age, everyone knows the terminology smart money, but they're not necessarily aware of how to double click to find out whether it is indeed appropriately smart money. And so people that have been in the sector that have taken a business that is same but different through scale and then through exit, that's authentically smart, right? Because they understand FMCG, they know what it takes to make a company of that ilk look attractive, how to build it for sale, who might buy it, all the sorts of things that would be questions that you'd been pondering along the way, no doubt, but you perhaps didn't quite have answers
blind.
to.
Yeah, totally. So it just gave us that kind of reassurance and to give us the feeling of we can do this, we can take it to the next level, and it just made it a little bit less scary as well. Everybody that we brought on the team, even including when we did the deal, was I think it's really important to choose people who surround you that you can feel really real around, and you can ask what you think is the dumb questions, because it's a really big deal. All of the the legal jargon and all just the how do you go about it. I remember at the time, we didn't have GPT back in the day. And every business sale brings its unique kind of flavour and magic. So how do you know what to do? How do you know to do the value? Who do you bring on? So because these people had stepped through transactions before, we were able to lean on their experience and also build a really great team around us to support us through the process.
Strategic investor, did you then establish a board and they came into that board?
Exactly,
yeah, great. And
so it was an advisory board around us.
Great.
But
it's so smart.
Yeah, and then it was a great kind of it was we had an intentional, we'd talked about sale, we'd brought them on with the idea we'd love to exit in, 3, 4, 5 years. So it was coming to that time frame, and we made a conscious decision right now. And we had the conversations around, well, who do we build the team to support us? So our first connection was with a corporate finance advisor, and he kind of led the negotiation for us. And then we kind of built our IM, making sure that the first connection looks lovely and all the details around the top sales and, where the brand could go. And then I remember building like a list of kind of potential people that, may be interested in buying us. And it just sort of started from there.
Yeah.
And from the team as well, we brought in our GM and also our chief financial officer into the tent, because they were going to be obviously involved heavily with the DD. So, but it was sort of an awkward feeling of kind of like only 2 people from the company knew, like it's because I had some advice through it, which is like, you've got to keep day-to-day business running, because if you take your eye off the ball, you're
no sale potentially, and then your business has suffered.
And it's exhausting and it's really distracting.
Yeah.
So, and you don't want to kind of disrupt just the good, your day-to-day business with it, because it is really time intensive.
Yeah.
It's emotional. It's, and you don't know if it's going to come out with a sale or not. There's no certainty.
Yeah.
Imagine that you'd spent like 9 months trying to sell this business, and you drop the ball.
Yeah, your sales decline by 10, 15%. You go into a loss-making position.
All that stuff.
Yeah,
so
and it takes 3 years to reset back to where you were, if that is the case, because I've come across this in the past. So you selected an M&A advisor.
Yeah.
And then with them and with your GM and your CFO person, you then kind of collated a list of prospective buyers.
Yes.
And did the M&A advisor, they went off and kind of approached those people and said, hey, I've got a strategic buy opportunity. Could you be interested? Here's the IM, that kind of thing.
Exactly that.
Yep,
yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
And so let's talk timing. So post that kind of initial IM being assembled and then getting some interested parties to the table, how long did that take, and how many parties came around?
Yeah, so from, I think, the whole sale process was 9 months. And we probably spoke to 10 different people. And it happened that, so our chief negotiator would kind of make the first kind of connection, then our GM might meet them, and then kind of at the stage that we had starting to have some sort of meaningful conversation, that's when Marie and I would be brought in at a later stage. So, it was about sort of 10 different people that sort of were kind of lurking around, and some, everybody at different kind of stages and so forth.
Yes.
And it was actually late. It was probably 4 or 5 months into. It was actually a later stage connection with Walter and Wild, who was a company that was created by the Hart family, so Graham and Harry, and they at the time had been purchasing different branded food companies, including Cerebus Greggs, Hubbard's Foods. So they were actively in an acquiring mode. So it was just a kind of amazing timing, really.
Yes.
Also, Graham Hart had obviously been Goodman Fielder, had knowledge of pie manufacturing. Right. So actually one of our shareholders was his GM back in the day. So there was kind of a nice connection between us, and so this conversation started happening, and then we'd have the initial meetings, and I think I was I played a really great role, I think, in terms of the charisma and the passion behind the brand, and a really wonderful I think we did really well at showcasing the future of the brand and showing that it was, there's lots of different categories, and we're really excited, and we were really still excited, and I think that passion does transpire to and we'd always had passion for the brand, so that was exciting to be able to share that with someone, and exciting to be involved with a company like that. Yeah, family owned. Obviously had the ability to look after them. I mean, this was our baby. Like, I often joke that I had actually 3 children. Yeah. The pie company was the 3rd. And so we were really wanting to make sure that it was being looked after. It was a real emotional connection. Yeah. So it was really exciting that a family-owned New Zealand company was interested in working with us,
Yes.
and who wanted to employ us as well.
Yes.
So yeah, it was just a really a great fit. Obviously quite a fascinating experience because obviously Hart family, well known and so forth. It definitely added another layer of intrigue to no pressure, you know, no pressure, right?
These guys have done this once or twice. It's our first time.
I know. I was like, so that especially made me so grateful that we had created a really smart and experienced team around us. So we had an amazing M&A lawyer, we had our great accountant, we had our negotiator. So we felt really supported in that because it was hard, like it's going through DD and all the warranties, and just it really puts you on your toes. And it is exhausting. So I'm having that rock star crew around us, I don't think we could have gone through it if we didn't have, and our amazing GM and our CFO, who did so much incredible hard work to get this working for us. We used to laugh sometimes. It was like, because the level of professionality that these people bring to it is insane, right? And we used to laugh thinking, is this a telecom set? Like, are we selling a pie company or on the NASDAQ? Or I don't know. So, but it was a really beautiful experience. I'm super grateful for having gone through that and seeing that sort of caliber of business.
Yes, you've no doubt learnt a lot through the process. I'll come back to some of those lessons in a second, but I think it is there's quite an asymmetry when you're dealing with an experienced M&A team as a founder who's going through that journey for the first time, because you've got these folk that have seen 10 minimum, probably 100 companies over time. They've probably bought a quarter of those companies. They're really intimate with the process. There's nothing uncomfortable for them in the journey. It's not their baby that they're having to get poured over by things. Plus also they're the ones that are doing the requesting for the information, not having to go and run around and either create or locate the things that are sought during due diligence. And so I think you've hit the nail on the head, having the right people around you, and also an awareness that you need to keep on running and growing your business in the background are just two of the most critical aspects of getting success in that deal. And if it doesn't succeed in the way that you want it to, then you've still got a great asset that's still running and growing in the background. Two-part to this question here. So you, I'm imagining, had a letter of intent, a non-binding offer letter, which then kicked into the DD phase. So how close to the actual deal that was done at the end, and I know we can't talk about the specifics, but how close to the actual deal that was done at the end was the non-binding offer letter, and how long did it take from the non-binding offer letter to complete the deal?
Well, we kind of had a little bit of a different approach whereby sort of as a board, we came up with, because I suppose it was tricky because we weren't like a factory. We essentially were selling a brand. So we had to come up with some, like a territory that we felt was the value that we felt was worthwhile, and we came up with that as a team through the different stakeholders around us and their experience that would be comfortable selling it, and then our negotiator kind of like that ballpark was discussed at that initial sort of before we went into DD, but it was kind of in parallel. So we did the DD and it sort of was like it was a bit like I was like, what are we going to get? What's it going to be?
Yeah, okay.
So I was like, it was kind of like a interesting process in terms of a bit like, okay. So at the point in time we did get the, this is what we want to sell it for. Yeah, it was kind of later in the.
Interesting.
Yeah, so
so that presents a degree of risk, right? Because
it was really scary.
Yeah,
it was huge amounts of effort just to kind of go through
just to get to that point of having them interested. It's like you're going through all of this effort to get ready for a prom that you don't know if you're actually going to.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you're waiting for the date to turn up and ask you. Yeah. I don't know where that analogy came from, but we'll run with it.
I'm sure there's something there. Something. Some saying.
Yeah.
Made sense to me.
So what gave you certainty that they were the right crowd? I'm guessing it was the fact that they'd bought other businesses in this space. They had the familiarity, they're the heart, so they're a well-resourced family, got a good reputation in New Zealand. Yeah, okay.
They had the passion and drive for it. They had a manufacturing site they were going to, if the deal went through, they wanted to employ the whole team, and they were excited about us coming on to their team. So, there were just lots of it was just amazing timing, really, because, And it was tricky, I suppose, as well, because if you think about it, 5 different contract manufacturers, all with different, we had quite an extensive
business.
Was actually quite complex. We had chilled, frozen, and ambient products, which, all require different storage and distribution. So someone had to be pretty, up for it to take
pretty
on.
Sharp as well.
It was great timing. They were looking to expand. They loved the brand. I think they'd known the brand for a long time, which was great. So it just was a great connection.
And so you got through the deal. You did the deal. What was the terms of for you personally, like the earn out and that sort of stuff?
There wasn't an earn out. We had an escrow and the working capital equation and things, but we pretty much went into the employment. But it was kind of crazy because we were kind of like DD and, employment stuff happening. So there was just so many layers to it to kind of get through with the whole process.
And looking back on the transaction itself, the preparation for the transaction, the due diligence and the negotiating, and then the back end of it, looking back upon that and knowing what you know now, what would you have changed about how you approached it and went about kind of your part in getting the deal done?
Maybe I wouldn't have sweated so hard. I just think maybe, you know what I mean? I'm like, oh, look, it all worked out. I just think it was really, it was the like you said, we didn't know if there was going to be a sale, yet you're going through the whole process. I think, but maybe that's a trope for life, right? Don't worry as much, actually it didn't, all that hours of agonizing, is it going to sell, is it not? I don't know. Is that something you can take for life?
I think so. Yeah. We had a conversation off camera, which was, what will be, essentially. And this is meant to happen for me. That's a principle that I carry around in life because, 100%. I've adopted the Stoic way of thinking, which in reality says that there's very little that we have control over.
Yes.
So we have control over how we react or respond to something and what we make that thing mean. And otherwise, we have very little control over things. And so, and if I combine that with low expectations, which is sometimes hard, I'm going away to Central America in a few weeks and, quite excited about that quite quietly, but I'm managing those expectations down daily so that then, therefore, everything becomes amazing because my expectations are super low.
Yeah.
And so that's me, mixing those two things together. Like, things are meant to happen. Why is this happening for me, not to me? And so, is that kind of a bit of the mentality that you have around these things anyway?
Definitely.
Yeah.
And especially, I think, I've done lots of sort of self growth and trying to understand. I think I have been such a doer, and it gets very addictive, that sort of behaviour, constantly busy, lots of adrenaline. But that, I don't think that's long term it's not great.
It's not sustainable.
It's not great for your health,
no.
The cortisol and all of that. So for me, and especially since selling the business, an opportunity to do some deep reflecting on, well, how can I be more present and be more aware of how I react to things and live in the moment more and enjoy things more. I think, I can remember we actually did a mindful course a while back, and then I realised, gosh, I really don't live in the present at all. And that was a real cathartic moment to go, what is it if we're not here right now? Where if I'm constantly in the future thinking about, the next exciting thing. I remember being at some sort of event when I was really busy in the busy times and just thinking, I was really looking forward to this. And I'm in this event and I'm not really enjoying it, but I'm here right now. Why can I not? Where's the joy in this? So that started my kind of spark of wanting to know more about my internal kind of connection to who I am truly, and that my thoughts are not me. I have the ability to decide how I think about things. And so I'm very much on that path of trying to search for joy in the little things in life, because actually I definitely think after selling the business, it was such a watershed moment for me when I had been so focused for so many years of achieving, and then you do it, and then you're like, this is not what I thought it would be. And you have this like, oh gosh, my identity was so wrapped up in the business as well. So it was a real sort of, it was actually quite a hard time selling the business for myself to kind of go, oh gosh, I had to face myself a little bit and decide what is important to me as well. So I've been really grateful for the time to have to learn about that, and and put in some more practices to maintain my emotional, spiritual, physical health, to be more balanced and enjoy this incredible gift which is life, right? Because I think you can just be I was so obsessed with achievement and doing the thing that I wasn't even enjoying the time that even though I was achieving, and I've always achieved, when was I taking time for myself to enjoy it? So I've been really grateful that I've had a pause in my life to deep dive into that true self.
I've had a similar experience, woo-woo alert.
I know. I'm like, oh.
And it is a gift, right, to be able to go through that journey, to head into that space. And so I'm curious, I'll share mine in a second, but what's been one of the more difficult or the more transformative experiences that you've had on this kind of growth and development journey?
I think, obviously, I have started a new business, and being conscious that I don't want to go back to my old ways in terms of just that frenetic kind of, intense, can't get off the, hamster wheel sort of thing. But excited about the opportunity of, all the things that I've learnt in the time that I have had some space to reconnect with my true self, put those different practices in place. And I think there's just new things that I've learned through just reading and podcasts and all that, and I actually have been on a yogic journey, so which has really helped me to, I think, probably calm my nervous system more, and just get more balance in my life. So I think for me now, it's such a quest I really treasure, and it's such a I'm so dedicated to making sure that I carve out time to be calm, I really put that on a pedestal. And I think it has, and it still catches me out because I am naturally a high achiever, a really hard worker, and I'm excited by life. It's the balance between achieving and doing all the things, but still maintaining that sort of core of calm, and I'm really, I'm excited to put what I've learnt into this new business and, do things differently. Yeah, I say that now, but
yeah, we'll see. We'll get to that. I call it the tyranny of drive, and it's the metaphor that I use is that there's a monkey, for those of us that are driven, there's a monkey who resides on our back, and he has a riding whip.
Yeah, what's the name of your monkey?
I actually haven't given him a name.
No.
Maybe I should personify and bring him to life a little bit.
Yeah.
And so the monkey basically is there just kind of whipping, go harder, go faster, right? And so for those that don't have the monkey, they look at people that are, accomplished high achievers, and they go, you're lucky, you're motivated. And you're like, you don't know what that's like. Yeah. It means that you can't shut off, you can't shut down. And there's always the desire and the drive and the almost like a insatiable need just to keep on going and striving. And so that can be exhausting. You talked about the anxiety, and in the modern world, and as a busy entrepreneur, I call myself, I had I had stress in my life. No, I didn't. I had constant low grade anxiety, and sometimes it was peaky anxiety. Yeah. Cortisol in the system, horrible experience. I'll share the things that I've done, and I'm curious about some of the practices that you have. So I've gone and lived with a monk for a week. So meditated for 8 to 10 hours a day over the course of a week. That was hard. Yeah. That wasn't super enjoyable. The discomfort actually sitting in the seat was one of the hardest things for that duration of time. I journal extensively, so self-reflection, journaling, writing. I found that it's a wonderful method for me to work through any problems that I might be having in life or in relationships or in working something through. I call it the conversation with the higher self, because once you sit there and you write for a long enough time, and if you get able to practice doing it, And you can really tap into like this unconscious kind of, better being. And it's really hard to be a dick when you're writing things down because it's staying on paper.
Yeah.
It's hard to be an ass, right?
Yeah.
So there's obviously meditating, breath work as well. I found all of those practices super, super helpful. And then putting the hot and the cold in there too for kind of wellness and longevity and those sort of things. Have you had any kind of unusual, growth kind of experiences that you'd want to share?
Yeah, well, as it turned out, my child got a late diagnosis for being neurodivergent. So it sort of pushed me into kind of understanding and, thinking about, cognitive behavior. He went through cognitive behavioral
CBT,
therapy. Yeah.
right.
So that sort of was that kind of connection of between, what's your thought, what's your mind, and what's your emotion. So that was sort of one part of it that actually, and, I just deep dived on it, everything I could over up. So I felt like really empowered. It's been a really positive experience ultimately for our family to have that knowledge and really help him through that. And he's in a great place now, which is, I think partly growing up, but, I did put a hell of a lot of work into that, and that sort of understanding that sort of mind connection with your thoughts and how powerful that is. I think my own therapy, going to a therapist has really helped sort of unpack different sort of parts of myself.
Yes.
Sometimes when you get stuck on a thought or something, using different techniques to, there's a thing called detective thinking, which actually I did with my son, which is often with anxiety, you're very focused on the one thought, and your brain is like tunnel vision. And there's a way of actually, it's just a story. So there's a way of you being able to actually give your brain the opportunity to think about the other stories.
Right.
So you ask a series of prompts, which is like, what happened last time the situation arose? What's happened when you've seen other people go through this situation, and what's been the result? So it allows your brain to think of, suddenly, instead of just that one story that you're telling yourself, it allows you to come up with half a dozen different. So it reduces the energy around that kind of repetitive negative thought, that, automatic negative thought that you've got running around. So that's been something great that I've been able to use with my son, kind of think about myself as well. Layering on that, really making sure exercise is super key to kind of, it's not, and that's that yogic kind of principle. It's your mind, it's your body, it's your soul. And I have really, luckily my sister is on a spiritual journey as well. We went to India last year together.
Oh,
so that was just fantastic. And, I meditate. But I'm also really like, I think, one of the joys that we have in life is connecting with people. That's actually, and that's the kind of thing of, going, what is it that's important? And I've been given this chance to think about what is important to me. It's connecting, and it can be connecting with anybody. It can be connecting with the person in the supermarket. We're all people. So I take great delight in, wherever possible, kind of, what interaction can I have with somebody that's going to be an uplifting experience, even if it's a small exchange at the supermarket.
Yes.
So that's sort of, and within a team as well, like I think about my new team, I've really leaned into making sure that I'm really pushing myself with connecting, and, if there's conflict, not shying away from it, but going into it in a really, and it's been so enjoyable when there's been some sticky parts, rather than sort of squirming away from it. If you can lean into them and work out, because it's just your response to someone sometimes if there's a challenge. So if you lean into it and go, gosh, and really get to the real why behind it, what an uplifting experience that you can come away from what was like a really yucky exchange to go, I actually misinterpreted that, for one, which is usually the case. But also, now I understand you more. Yes. And now I can know that that's a trigger for you. So maybe I won't say it in that way. I'll come and approach, just that kind of being open to really deep feedback is something that I'm sort of really excited to kind of, that next layer of sort of just being older and kind of knowing sort of how you want to evolve. And I think that's going to help my journey with stress levels and just because conflict always exists in business, right? I mean, I know what I'm getting into. Going and doing a new business, I'm not taking it lightly.
Yes.
But I'm really being conscious about how I want to do things differently. So,
Thank you for sharing.
That's all right.
I think it was Plato that said that the greatest single, and I'm paraphrasing, and most satisfying, the greatest most challenging and yet satisfying journey of discovery that we can have in our lives is to know ourselves as an individual. And my experience for me is that my self-awareness was super, super low through my 20s and 30s. And then I had the time and the wherewithal and the distance and a partner that was challenging me to kind of step back and think about how I was showing up in the world. And so been on a deep journey of self-reflection and self-discovery. And there's some things that I've learned along the way which are quite helpful in framing things, because the journey you were talking about was really about how we frame. It's not the experiences in life that determine the quality of life that we have.
Yes.
It's what we make those things mean, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And so how we process them and then what we do about those things. And so that's framing, right? Is essentially, so if you can have the skill of reframing that thing for yourself or helping others do that, then it can enrich something. So there's another thing which I find quite helpful as well, which is mental models. And the one that popped into my head a second ago was Hanlon's razor. And we encounter people on a day-to-day basis in a huge variety of different circumstances. To be a human is to have interactions with other people, unless you choose to lock yourself up at home and get everything delivered, which is weird. And sometimes people behave weirdly. And so the temptation that we can have, especially if we're having a bad day, might be to attribute someone's bad behaviour, someone cutting you off in traffic, for example, or someone serving you rudely at the cafe, to malice or to just being a bad person, right? Hanlon's razor says, don't attribute to malice what can be explained by stupidity. And so it's quite freeing to kind of go, and stupidity frames it in a negative way, but if someone cuts you off in traffic, then you might go, what a terrible driver, what an asshole. But you could go, they probably didn't see me. They probably didn't check their wing mirror. And that really lightens the experience for you, and then it also kind of takes the angst away and, makes you not send some hateful thoughts towards someone, which is just poisoning anyway. So, interesting.
And a build on that is that, someone does that to you, they say something rude about you or cuts you off in traffic or whatever. It is my choice to respond to that. I'm the one giving that energy to that situation. And so if I have control on that and I choose not to get angered by it, well, that is actually on me to manage myself.
Yes. Yeah, 100% agree. So you had let's go back to the 2 exit.
Yeah.
And then you were working for the business that acquired your business.
Yes.
At what stage did you decide to head out, and what did the kind of next couple of steps look like for you?
Yeah. So I stayed in the business for 9 months. And that was the perfect amount of time I launched 3 or 4 different new products that we talked about, made sure that the team was settled, and also implemented the changeover of the manufacturing internally. And then it just felt like the natural time for me to say goodbye. And we actually buggered off to Arrowtown and did a ski season there with the kids. And
I wanted to do that.
Yeah, It's so cool because they do ski in school.
Right.
So every Friday I was a ski mum, and the kids had 1 day of skiing each. So it was really, really cool, and just such a beautiful, it's just heavenly down there. Yeah. So that was really special. And then after that, kind of COVID hit. COVID. So I think like I said before, it was definitely sort of a big kind of suddenly the phone's not ringing, what am I doing with myself sort of thing, and COVID as well. But I had a few kind of hobbies that I was really keen on. I have, creative side. I paint. I actually got top for New Zealand in painting back in the day. And it was a really hard decision because I had to decide between going and having an art career or do sciences.
What tipped the balance for you? The art career is not a terrifically orthodox one in New Zealand. I have a niece that I'm supporting through art education at the moment, actually, and I'm a passionate art collector. Yeah. And so I'm aware of the space, and the whole struggling artist thing is a real deal.
It's real.
Yeah, it's real. So was that the tipping point for you?
I think my parents were both in the artistic arena. My dad was a ceramic artist, and my mum was a fashion designer back in the day. So and all of their friends were artists. So I saw firsthand the financial struggles, including my own parents. They were never money was always a bit short in our family. So it was a real conscious decision to go, I think I can't come back to the sciences, but I probably could come back to my art. And it was such a beautiful gift, that award to me, because if I hadn't got it, I probably would have gone, I'm not that much of a painter. But it really gave me that thing of No, you actually do have you can paint. You are going to bloom and pick up a paintbrush. So that was one of the things I did when I sold the business. And I was terrified. I hadn't painted for like 25 years. Wow. And I remember my first gently, but it was such a special thing to reconnect with my true self. Painting and being creative is definitely part of who I am. So it allowed time to do that. Also do surfing as well. And I hadn't done that since I was in my 20s and being a mum. So I quickly got pretty busy, as well as I grew up at a place called Parkery Beach, north of Auckland, and it's had been sand mined for 80 years, and I've seen the deterioration of that beach firsthand. And I had an opportunity to be involved with, the mining company were coming up for its consent. I got involved with a grassroots community-based campaign to try and stop the consent at RMA hearing. We succeeded there. They took us to the High Court. So we had this whole incredible so that kept me quite busy. And it was exciting in twofold, because it made me recognise I still have a lot of energy for going and doing something I'm really passionate about, the environment, and it actually helped build a bridge to me kind of actually acknowledging in myself that nature is really, really important. Being a mum, I'm really conscious of what's happening on the planet and thinking, and I have had, climate anxiety for sure. And I thought, well,
I'll join you on that.
It's sometimes terrifying. And so I made a conscious decision that I thought, well, I do think I've still got energy for another business. I know myself. I love business, but I was like, right, if I'm going to go back in to this, because I know what it's going to take, it's a really conscious decision to do something where I feel like it's going to be helping the planet. Yeah. And I just was really lucky to stumble across this new emerging technology where you can upcycle food waste using insect bioconversion. So it's a beautiful circular play on using an underutilized waste stream and using nature to create an alternative protein that can be fed to pets and aquafeed. So sort of a disruptor in the food chain, and using some really cool tech as well. And it just pushed me to a place that, I never dreamed I'd be a tech, a clean tech entrepreneur. So it's been a really exciting, I never thought I'd be in this place, in the venture capital world, and,
yes.
Raising capital and, starting this type of new emerging industry.
Let's break it down.
I know, summarise it quite quickly, haven't I?
No, you've done a really good job of going high level and what it is. But I'm curious about the lay explanation of what it is, because once I started to scratch the surface of it, BSFL, black soldier fly larvae, and I'm like, oh, this sounds interesting.
Yes.
So to talk us through the actual mechanics of what happens here. So there's food waste and what we do with food waste at the moment versus the technology that you've developed, and then what the upcycling piece is and the circular pieces. So give us the layperson explanation, if you could please, Jessie.
Sure. So it's actually the larvae that you're growing. And if we think about insects are a natural part of our food chain. We just don't really think about it. They're really important nutrition blocks for wild animal diets. They help with immunity building and many health and well-being aspects of animals. So we've kind of cottoned on to the idea of insects being in our food chain a little bit later, but essentially it's meat, just not like we think of it. It's got all the essential amino acids. So it's a really wonderful health and well-being added value protein that can be used to feed things like aquafeed when you're growing fish, or pet food. But in terms of the actual process of how it works, so we don't actually we do grow the insect, and you have kind of two systems where you have food waste coming in, and you want to optimize that for the best nutrition to grow the most protein. You inoculate that food waste. And
what does inoculate mean?
Oh, so the little, like the baby insect, and it eats it. The mechanism that's so wonderful about this is this insect has a rapid ability to munch through food waste at rapid speed. So the protein, you can create high quality protein within 2 weeks. When you compare this to, say, traditional livestock, growing a cow or something, it's years.
Right.
So it's like a really rapid and low emissions way of getting a really valuable protein's really valuable. It's hard to make.
Yes.
So it's a different.
We're reliant upon it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, like at the moment, for example, when we're growing fish in the wild, a horror story is that we use wild fish stocks to feed our salmon.
You're kidding.
Yeah.
So we farm salmon.
We
and the
hoover
salmon
up anything in the ocean.
Wow. And we feed it to the farm salmon.
Yeah. So
I've heard also with the farm salmon that they will often live in areas where they're polluting the water as well. And so
I think there's some challenges in the aqua industry, but yeah. So
sorry.
No, yeah.
Come back to the black soldier flies. Yeah, larvae.
No.
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
So in essence, you take food waste, which would otherwise be decomposed,
or gone to landfill, and that's obviously
yeah.
creating greenhouse emissions.
Yes.
So yeah,
and space and all those other nasties, toxins and bits and pieces, no doubt as well. And then you have larvae which consume that food waste, and that larvae then gets harvested to become a food. Yeah. Okay, cool.
So it's just like, well done.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
It's quite complicated. And even their byproduct, their poos, is really exciting as well. It makes an amazing biofertilizer that can help. Yeah, so it's just this. So, for example, we could take, I don't know, we can work with someone who's making waste in the food industry, take their byproduct and give them fertilizer, say, to grow their crops. So there's a really beautiful circular play.
How did you come across this?
Well, I can thank my cat Harry. I was like feeding him, the cat food, and I was like, this is really gross, and I bet it's not sustainable. The packaging is really unsustainable, and I thought surely other pet parents would like a sustainable option for pet food. You see, different options for sustainable products in lots of different segments. I knew that the pet space is just growing so quickly, so I just came in with this kind of like, surely there's got to be a better sustainable option. And then I just, went into my usual deep, dark,
research mode.
Hyper-focus.
Yes.
And came across this world of this alternative protein. I was so excited. I don't think I'd slept for 3 months. I was like, this is amazing. And it does so many things. I love it.
I bet your kids are like, Mom, you're grossing us out.
Yeah. It's like, it's a new thing, right? It's a bit crazy. But I built the pet food. I built a pet food brand. And I realized I was importing this alternative protein. And what I realized quickly was that actually I can make more impact if I grow the protein. I've seen a lot of food waste through my food career. And that's kind of how it started. Like I said, we took my sister's bathroom.
Yeah. Why did you do that?
At the time, there was like no information on how to grow this insect. And we didn't know where it was going to come. So she's my brother-in-law and a good friend of mine, one of the co-founders for Grub. And we did not know where it was going to take us. So we started super small, and then I was able to get lots of different grants, and we were able to, conduct our own science, prove out the concept, find some amazing technology to help us. And then the big one was we've got a grant from the New Zealand government for half the money. So it's 3.5 million for the first commercial production facility. So because
you can't outsource this because it's not done anywhere else, so you need to have your own facility. So that means industrial hardware kind of things and real estate and those types of things. Yeah, cool.
And I've been in factories my entire careers, and my business partners are all the food engineers. So we've got a really nice team with us to get this off the ground. So,
love it. And you mentioned raising money, so you've gone out and successfully raised. We're in the process
we're
right
in the
now.
Process.
Yes.
So raising $4 million at the moment. So we have a cornerstone investor. Yay!
Great.
So that's been
it's the most important thing on that journey is get someone to say yes at the outset with a big check.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And we are
a well-known brand. I probably can't ask at this stage. Confidential.
It's a climate focused impact fund. So that's really exciting. Our values are really well aligned, and now we're over halfway committed to the round. So.
Well done.
It's been a really amazing experience because when we started the pie company. I don't think venture kind of was even really
pretty small.
It was not kind of in the
Yeah.
So that's been
Actually,
a wild ride.
I've been investing in startups since 2001. So reasonable duration in the New Zealand market. But I was curious about the foundations of venture capital, broadly speaking.
Yeah.
And because New Zealand, we started to have some growth in it during the noughties, but then it got kind of squashed by the GFC, and then it started to really ramp up in the teens and then in the 20s as well. But it's actually been around since the 1960s in the States. Yeah, venture capital is actually a very mature form of finding funding. It just took a very, very long time to come to New Zealand because we're fixated on farming, typically, growing better cows and a different type of kiwi fruit,
making milk,
which we still do. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and so we were just a bit slow out of the cab off the rank, so to speak. So the economic model, I'm really curious about this. So you've gone from a business where you buy different forms of produce along the value chain. You bring those things together. You manufacture some of those things using suppliers. You then put a smart sales and marketing thing around this and then take it out to the world. That sounds as if it's going to be quite different as an economic model. Have you gone into the breaking it down?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, tell me about the economic model.
Extensive modelling, and it's a new industry as well.
Yeah.
So, but the exciting thing is we're not the first person to get into this. It's had 10 or 15 years behind it, but we kind of I like to say we kind of like the next generation. So there's some really great tech out there now, and we're essentially now an ingredient supplier.
Right.
But the great thing is we've got customers that we're pre-commercialization. We've already got customers, pet food customers, and aquafeed partners that want to buy our protein, which is like I put on my business hat and I'm like, that's pretty exciting that there's actually customers before we've even made.
It's incredible before you got a product.
Yeah, so that's exciting. The other great aspect to kind of the unit economics is that depending on your waste stream, you can actually get a revenue from processing the waste. So you can get different revenue from either selling the products, either your biofertilizer or your protein, or you can get a gate fee from processing waste. So it's kind of like that helps to sort of, shore up your numbers for your process.
Yeah.
But but different in terms of it's not a consumer facing brand, but I personally think everybody has. Depending if you still have to have branding around a company. So, I'm really careful to make sure that, that communication is still, I'm able to lean into my skills in that area to create something that's beautiful and helps to sell it. Because certainly in venture, you have to, it's got to be,
look good.
It's got to be, you've got to have the complete package. You've got to be able to sell it and sell the vision, and also for it to look beautiful. Everybody is aware of what looks good and not. So
yes. I've come full circle on the branding thing, actually. So I studied in the early 90s, and one of the majors was marketing. And so brand had been a really big deal coming through the 60s, 70s and 80s, and through the power of advertising and the reach of television and radio and all newspapers and all those sorts of things, obviously pre-internet. And so brand was king. And then the tech boom happened in the mid to late 90s, and all these weird brands started to pop up. And it was really not about brand at all. It was about nifty name, moving fast, delivering something to the consumers that they didn't know that they needed or wanted, and then kind of doing something cool. And obviously then the bottom fell out of that, and then we kind of grew a little bit, and then the GFC, and then everything changed a little bit. But then over the last kind of 3 to 5 years, it's become quite clear that the mega brands, the FAMGA, the Facebook, Apple, Microsoft, etc., those also have incredible businesses. But then if you look at, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Tracksuit.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So an incredible job from Simon Pound and Co. at Previously Unavailable. To pull together an incredible brand, a great product, clearly as well. New Zealand's fastest ever growing startup, so the fastest to reach 10 million of recurring revenue. And it's such a cool brand, and it's so aligned with their industry as well. You're like, these guys have really nailed it.
And allows them to turn up at award shows and tracksuits.
Right. There's just many, many reasons that it's super, super cool. So I totally agree that a brand is a super, super important thing to do. So you're close to this alternative protein space. You're not even close in it. You're in the middle of it, alternative protein. And so you're manufacturing a source that it's going to form a part of pet food.
Yeah.
And so what's your view on our food supply, so humans' food supply, looking into the future, do you see a point in the future where this or alternate sorts of protein are the sort of things that we're going to be supplementing into our diet over time?
Well, I'm not sure if we'll be eating fly larvae. Sorry. I
had to ask.
Weirdly enough, I've tasted it. It's
And?
kind of nutty. And like you could, put my food tech hat on, you could make a protein bar out of it, but I think it's going to be a hard sell. And also we've seen such evolution with plant-based proteins. So I don't think, and that's why I think some of those kind of like, alternative, the chemically created, lab meats and things. Well, the plant stuff has actually been quite good. So you haven't seen that sort of rocket off. I'm really excited by some of the stuff happening in precision fermentation.
What is that?
So it's whereby it actually takes the same sort of process as beer brewing. So it's using yeasts, but specifically targeting them to create they can create different chemical components, like isolate different fractions from milk. So there's Daisy Lab, for example, looking at that. Or they can even, like these yeasts can brew sort of meat byproducts and things like that. So it's like this whole other kind of world of like growing ingredients, which means that you don't have potentially the impact on land use and so forth. So, but I mean, I think there's going to be huge changes within lots of different, we saw this disruption we had to our food supply chain through COVID, right? And I don't know if you've noticed at the supermarket, things like olive oil spiking in price, chocolate, cocoa, coffee.
Massively, yeah.
That's directly impacted from climate.
Yes.
Change and just the disruptions that we're having there. I think the seasonal peaks that we're going to be seeing, it's going to have an impact on us.
Yes.
They're already starting to, right? So,
yes.
So there's different sort of, and coupled together with, I think we're going to be hitting 10 billion by 2050. There's going to be many more mouths to feed.
Yeah.
We will have to think about different ways that we we waste 40% of the food that we produce, which is just horrific. So there will have to be ways that we use food in a better way, dispose of it. There's going to be lots of different things that need to come. The insect bioconversion is just but one kind of aspect to. I believe that tech-led solutions to making sure that we can future-proof our food supply chains. I've heard of kind of like, alternatives to coffee, different, tech-led solutions. So there's going to be things that I think will, but that's, unless I still have a lot of hope that, we can still sort of,
We've got to
manage.
have hope, right?
You do. So,
otherwise you'll end up being nihilistic about it. I think about the type of protein that you've talked about there, and the one that I've heard of, not tried as yet, is cricket or locust protein.
Yeah.
I understand that's a very efficient form of taking waste and then converting it into protein. And in my mind, I'd probably eat a locust before I'd eat a fly larvae.
Yeah, totally.
Then this is an interesting conversation, because if you were to explain to me what some of those numbers were in some of the food that I'm eating currently today anyway, I'd probably rather eat a black fly larvae than eat all of those chemicals.
Yeah,
I'd imagine. I don't
well,
know. But
if we look at our, what happens in nature, it's aligned to actually, these animals in the wild eat this insect because they know it's good for them. So.
Right. Yes.
So who knows? It might become a fad. And
The part of the world that we live, we have native bush next to us, and so we have to live with the insects. And so we made the decision to not poison the inside of the home, because we live there, firstly, but also B, because we have a lot of beautiful native bird life, and so they eat the flies. And so, the flies eat the spiders, and, the birds eat the spiders and the flies, and hopefully the wasps and other bits and pieces. And so we made that decision that we are existing in their space. They've been around a lot longer than we have. Their lives are shorter, but their families have been around a lot longer than we have. And so we made the decision to not do that. It's an interesting evolving world that we live in relation to all of these things, right?
Yeah. But we are part of nature. I think, we are, really reliant on it. So we need to look after it.
Yep, totally
and
agree.
it gives us so much as well, like for just being a human, being in nature, and, it's really important.
So Good Grub, what's your vision for the company?
Yeah, so we'd love to grow it within New Zealand, and then, there's opportunities to take it offshore as well. So, Yeah, but first hurdle is just to finish the capital raise
Yes.
and just get stuck. And I'm really, really excited about. I think it's so nice that this company really aligns with my purpose.
Yeah.
And it's really mission based. So it really helps give a lot of energy to me for the project, and it's really kind of flowed.
Yes.
It's been a really enjoyable process to date. So
Yes.
yeah, but really, really excited to see where we can take it.
There's a holy trinity of starting a business, and it's meeting 3 Ps. The last P that you talked about there, purpose, is the hardest one for people to meet. The other 2 are problem. So there's a really, really clear problem that you're solving for with the venture, and the other is passion. And so you've got the holy trinity here with this business.
That's nice.
Yeah. So
that's why, like it's given me. It's just it's funny because I think after I sold the business, I had I was like, oh, what am I doing? And it was amazing how I really the joy that sparked in me once I kind of had this kind of idea and started getting stuck into it. It's been really, really pleasurable. So.
Yeah. This seems like the sort of thing that you could, have a big impact from. It feels to me, based upon your story and background and what you're bringing to this, plus your quite strong mindful approach, which is not just awareness of self, but of others and environment as well, that this could be something like I'm really interested and looking forward to following this journey of Good Grub and seeing where it goes.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a fascinating journey. We've covered a range of different things here today, Jessie. Is there anything that's like a passion project or a piece for you that I haven't explored with you today that you'd like to share with the audience?
Gosh, it feels like we've covered a lot, haven't we? Pies, flies, children, life, yoga, even my sand mining, painting, surfing.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I think we've touched on a lot of good things. I think you've managed to draw out lots of good stuff from me.
Thank you.
It's been a really enjoyable chat.
So my parting question is, there's an alternate universe, and there's a Jessie that lives in that universe. She's not you, but she's just like you, and she's got a different career, and it's deeply satisfying to her. What is that career?
I think I would be in the film world. I look at a lot of my friends. They're so I've got many of my friends are directors or creatives, writers, and actually I had the privilege of one of the random side things I did in my time once I sold the business is I actually worked for a TV show, and it was such a delight.
What did you do?
It was a show called Snack Masters.
Okay.
And I was the producer on there, involved in kind of the story arcs. It was where you took chefs came on and recreated top snack products. So it was just a perfect job for me.
Go.
And I had the most wonderful experience. And I thought, gosh, I think I would have got a lot of joy. The type of people that are involved in the film industry, I think, they're probably all neurodiverse and it was such fun. So yeah. So food, I think, film and TV.
Film and TV. Do you know in what capacity? Would you be a director, producer?
Production. Yeah.
That's the person that pulls it all together and gets the money and makes it happen.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
So it uses financial acumen, people building. It's kind of like a mini business kind of. You're a kind of mini CEO, I think, as I saw it. But I realize I do love connecting with people. I am not shy to pick up a phone or get things happening. My dad calls me the bulldozer.
I was called that by my grandfather as a little boy. That's so funny.
Yeah. I like making things happen.
Yes.
So, and that seems like that's a world of
beautiful
connecting with people.
If people want to follow you, Jessie Stanley on LinkedIn.
Yep. LinkedIn.
Yep. Okay, great. Open to connect.
Yeah, absolutely. Always
Excellent.
Happy to have a chat to someone on their journey into startups.
And if any VCs are watching this, I know that some do, then also reach out and
absolutely.
Get some insight into what Good Grub is raising for. So thank you so much, Jessie. It's been a really interesting, enlightening, and actually an uplifting conversation for me today as well. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
So welcome.
If you enjoy these episodes, I hope you do. I love filming them, and the guests always say what a great and often cathartic experience it is for them. Then please do like and share. Hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm open to connect requests, and occasionally get emails from people as well asking me about my experience around certain subjects. So please do like and share, and continue to follow the show. I really appreciate your ears.